many have talked about there being a trend of more of those in-between kinds of organizations. Certainly there have been, new models with B corporations and LC3s and just that whole, and then as you look at corporate social responsibility and expectations of the young in terms of what companies will do, that there isn't so much the separate sectors, that there's a blurring.
Ellen, can I give 2 examples of public-private partnerships
Yes.
that I think are really exciting? Very briefly, is that this is not one that we work on at all, but I love discovering ones that you get excited about. I had a great conversation with Katie Campbell-Simons from Episcopal City Mission Burgess Urban Fund. I think she's here. It's amazing what can happen with a little imagination and being able to partner with a philanthropic foundation and government and community nonprofits. And 2 examples is around Housing First, and the other is around the census work that we did. My understanding around the Housing First movement was a movement, and I just think this is so fascinating. We all think about the problem of homelessness, and it just feels right. It can never be solved. And they decided, both in government, under the Deval-Patrick administration, and even before that under the Romney administration, to partner with foundations and to partner with community groups to, instead of sheltering folks, which is absolutely important, we have to do that on an emergency basis, to actually moving to permanent housing, which I'm not a homelessness expert at all, but I remember being a young person thinking, can't we have homes? And they said, well, yeah, we actually have to change the frame. So what they've done is they are funding shelters and they are funding emergency services around that, but they've decided to put their philanthropic dollars, as well as in this governor's budget, you will see this emphasis on permanent housing. And it was foundations who sort of helped lead this charge. The Paul and Phyllis Fireman Foundation and others, United Way, Boston Foundation. And so the foundations played a catalyst role in working with the community groups and government to say, well, a radical idea, let's house people. I think we have to be more imaginative and think about partnerships that way. And so they have funded together, they are strategizing together, and I think we're going to see in the next 20 years a more emphasis on permanent housing. It's going to be very exciting to see how that needle shifts. On the census, we worked with the Secretary of State's office, and we worked with Senator Rosenberg and Representative Moran, who chaired the commissions on the census. And we funded nonprofits all across the state to organize people to fill out their census forms, because it ain't just a form. Turns out we lost the congressional seat, folks. That wasn't because we didn't engage that many people. It's because other states in the Southwest and California were gaining a lot of population. But it could have been worse. We could have lost 2 seats, and a lot of the programs around education and housing that we all care about were going to be affected if people didn't fill out their forms. And we could have just said, oh, that's the government's job. And by the way, they did put a ton of money into advertising. But guess what? Our folks, our community people were trusted. They were the ones who were able to get the immigrants to participate, to get the low-income people to participate, the single moms who are busy, the young people who frankly don't, look at forms. They do everything online. So we partnered together and said, our gap is we think we can get the trusted partners to help people to do the census. And you all can focus on the big advertising campaigns and other things, but we can do that. And I think we can see ourselves as partners with government. They also need to know we can't do it. We can't fill the gap. And I will be probably one of the first people to say that I think it's, if we go on like this without looking at tax revenues and our tax base, if you think it's bad now, it's going to get really bad. And I think we have to say as foundations, we can't take this all on our shoulders. We can't fix the problem. Yes, you have to reduce the deficit. Yes, you have to look at spending. But we also have to look at what we can do to increase our tax base so that we can support services. I don't know. I personally think we're going to be in deep trouble if we don't do that.
Great.
Can I just add, in terms of, there was a really good article in the Stanford Social Innovations Review about collective impact and how you generate that, how that gets created in an effective way, in thinking about Richard's comment about, like, am I seeing the same entrenched challenges that I was looking at 20 years ago? And certainly teen pregnancy fits that bill in terms of a very complex issue that we continue to confront. But the thing that really interested me in this article was the highlight that if collective impact is going to happen, what you need, it really laid out what you need in order to make that happen. And one of the key things was the central infrastructure and staffing to move that forward. So simply saying we are going to meet together and we're going to all come together as a community to try to figure out what to do about teen pregnancy in Springfield or Holyoke or Lawrence or any place where it's been an issue for a long time, that is not enough. And that the actual infrastructure and staffing of that organized effort toward collective impact has to be part of the equation. And I think that is, the article indicated, and I would agree, not funding that is where those efforts fall short. Because none of the organizations on the ground doing the work to support young people and promoting adolescent sexual health have the time to push the ball forward and to help organize to come to a common vision. So that's a key piece that often gets left out of the equation around public-private partnerships. It can't be just added into the work that these organizations are already trying to do without resourcing specifically how you make that collective impact move. You need that infrastructure.
Great, thank you. Many more questions I have for them, but it's time to move it out to the audience now and find out what's on your mind. So whether it's around some of these themes, but feel free to talk about other themes, questions that you think that this room should be talking about and our great panelists. So questions.
Hi, I'm Ed Bilecki. I run Massachusetts Advocates Standing Strong, which is a nonprofit advocacy organization for persons with intellectual disabilities. I just had a question about when you're doing advocacy or you're doing what we do, I'm just wondering what's the best way to approach organizations like yours or you in particular to discuss some of these issues and how we can work together. I just find that in the past, this is not now, but it's been really hard to sort of, we're very small. You know, we've been 12 years, we're doing great things. We got finally after 15 years, got DMR to change its name to the Department of Developmental Services.
I know.
We're the 46th state in the country to finally do it. And we're trying to work on self-determination, really change some policies around people being empowered to really control their lives and work at the policy level. And we're the little engine that could, you know, and I'm just wondering how do someone like us, get to know who some of the people are and stuff. I know I've been doing some research, but you know who some of the key players are and stuff like that. It's a tough one.
I know that's not for me.
I'll start, but I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer it. It's advocacy is a tough one. I'll speak from the corporate philanthropy perspective. Funding advocacy organizations is a challenge for a couple of different reasons. Number one, I think, is that it's one thing when we're controlling the message, but we worry about funding advocacy and the message going anywhere and ultimately going in directions that we and our boards might not be comfortable with, and we've lost control of that. And so that's a challenge that I'm just being honest up front. That's something you have to look at. The other big barrier is that it goes to what was said over here earlier. For better or for worse, our focus and our boards still love to see direct impact on individuals today. And so I agree with you completely. It's a barrier to get over, and it's a challenging one.
I could comment too from my perspective at TPI. We work with lots of different donors in my family foundation, and you know, there is a disconnect, I think, right, between all this talk about the importance of advocacy and how much funding is available, because I think it often takes folks who have been pretty experienced in a particular field to also kind of get the importance. You know, it's not necessarily the independent donor who is working on their own. And I think the challenge is to motivate the funders to organize themselves around what the field needs, because then the obvious thing happens is that they come to, we need some system change. So to the extent that you as an